we're on to the book of Job. It's complex, but we're going to have a shot at it if we can. We don't know when the book of Job was set. We don't know much about the book of Job. In some ways, it could be anywhere. In some ways, it could be everywhere. Job could be anyone. He could be everyone. And that's the point. It's a book about the realities of human experience, the depths, the lows, the joys, and the heights of all that we experience. And asking the question, if this is what we experience, particularly tragedy, loss, evil, well, where is God in all of this? Particularly a creator God, a God of love and of grace and of goodness. We don't know whether Job actually existed either, but that's perhaps not the point. Whether it's fact or not, there's real truth here. The book of Job explores the story of the life of one person. In fact, one of the reasons why people think it's not probably true is because of the way it begins. It's almost as if this dare between God and Satan is to make it clear that this didn't actually happen, guys. It's theoretical. Imagine a scene, it's a story. A bit like the prodigal son. Doesn't mean it's less true because it didn't happen. But anyway, Job was someone whose cup ran over, someone who'd been blessed in life with children, 7 sons, 3 daughters, and loads of animals, more livestock than even I've got. Loads of sheep and goats and donkeys and everything else. And of course, in the system of the day, if he was being blessed, it meant he was a righteous person. He was doing right. So when it's all taken away from him, and his cup is empty, well, then it doesn't make sense. The story makes it clear that he was a righteous person, so how can it be empty? How can it all be stripped away? He's done everything that was asked of him. And Job's so-called comforters, his pals, come around him, and they make it really clear that he must have done something wrong. Because if he'd done things right, then he would be blessed. Being cursed was a sign of mistakes. And come on, Job, you can tell us, we're your mates. Be honest. No, don't keep trying to justify yourself. You must have done something wrong. And all the way through the book of Job, he pleads his case. No, I don't care what you say. I don't care what it looks like. I have done nothing wrong. And throughout the book, there's this wrestle within Job as he hangs on to belief and trust in God, yet is determined not to lose his sense of self, that he is a righteous person who has done what is right and didn't deserve all of this misfortune. But these friends, well, they're no friends at all. No comfort from them. They just keep rubbing it in. But you know, Job's a bit like his friends because he's still operating in the same system of cause and effect, of do good things and it leads to blessing, do bad things and it leads to curse. But then comes the end of the book where God shows up and he vindicates Job, but he makes it clear that he is much bigger than this system. Much bigger than just a God who rewards those who do good things and undermines those who do bad things, as if he's controlled by that kind of a system and limited to that kind of a system. And what God, as he appears, makes clear is that, Job, were you there when I created the heavens? Have you seen the storehouses of hail? Do you know what it's like to be all powerful, to be in control? And Job's like, I have no idea. God is much bigger than Job, and he's not restricted by any kind of cause and effect. He can do whatever he wants. Such is his freedom. And some people have read the book of Job as a story about freedom and how it disrupts our identity until we find that we can only find true security in God. Because God is free, we can find our freedom in him. If we try to establish ourselves, well, we're always on shaky ground. It's only when we truly plant ourselves in God and trust in him that we can be secure. I think that gets almost all of the way. I don't think it's quite there, though. Because what I think the book of Job does is portrays God as a God of abundance. Yes, he's free, but more than that, he's a God of excess abundance who pours upon us that excess of abundance until we are completely immersed. It's not just about being filled up to the brim by his goodness. No, it's more than this. It's like this. It's like God pouring on us the abundance of his grace. It's too much for us to handle. There's just loads and loads. It's unending. And we lose ourselves within it because it's just so free. I can't sit on the chair because I've just poured water all over it. But it's a brilliant image of how we are immersed deep within God's abundance and grace. We don't lose ourselves there, but we find ourselves there. It's not that our identity is lost, but it's embraced by that abundant goodness. It's where we find life. And there's something deeply profound at the end of the book of Job. I'm going to pull up this chair. Because what happens is that Job is given back everything that he's lost. All of the livestock. For every head of the livestock, he gets 2. So he gets double what he had in the first place. But not so with the kids. The children that he lost at the beginning of the story, the 7 sons and the 3 daughters, don't become 14 sons and 6 daughters. No, just 7 and 3. Because the original 7 and 3 can't be replaced, can they? You can never do that with a human life. No, somehow they are held in the abundance of this goodness and grace of God as well. They don't need to be replaced with 2 more for each head. No, they still exist, and they are deeply immersed in this life of grace and goodness, just as Job is. So God is free, and we only find our identity in the depths and reality of who God is, for sure. But Job is also a story of abundance, a freedom of abundance, and of how we find our true selves as we are immersed deep in the wonder of God's freedom, but also the abundance of his character, of his nature, the depths of who we are. It's not just some kind of transaction between us and God. No, it's about us being immersed in the reality of who he is. That's Job. Tomorrow, we'll look at how all of this lament and sadness and loss and grief and joy and wonder is expressed as we look at the book of Psalms. But there's enough for today to think about as we ponder on the book of Job. And to be honest, it might take me till tomorrow to clear up the mess I've made as well. The book of Job, excess of grace and of wonder and abundance.